LPTV, a production of the Libertarian Party. My name is Pat Ford. I currently serve as the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island, and I am the alternate for Region 8 for the Libertarian National Committee. There are a few purposes for this show. We give Libertarian down-ballot candidates an opportunity to meet our Libertarian community in a video family-friendly environment. We challenge our Libertarian down-ballot candidates to incorporate what I call lunch pail voter issues into a Libertarian message and to see them through a Libertarian perspective. And most importantly, it's an opportunity to create a sense of party unity. As folks who belong to affiliates from as far away as Maine and Florida get an opportunity to meet and greet, if you will, virtually, candidates from literally around the country. This show serves the entire Libertarian community. We broadcast live Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on LPTV. It's also on the Libertarian Party YouTube page. And we invite participation from all of our affiliates. If you're interested in joining us, message us on Facebook or hourwiththecandidates@gmail.com. Let's get right down to it. Joe Hannoush is a candidate for the Florida State House, the big District 25. He's going to join us in just a second. Joe, welcome to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for having me.
The question, if you're a regular watcher, regular listener, you know the question we always open up with is, Joe, what was your Libertarian moment? At what point in your life to discover that you not only supported liberty, but you saw the Libertarian Party as the perfect choice to focus your Libertarian activism?
Well, that moment, you want me to tell you the whole lead up or just that
Absolutely.
moment?
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I was one of those, stereotypical, if you're not a Democrat when you're younger and you're not a Republican when you're older, you don't have a heart when you're a Democrat when you're younger. You don't have a brain if you're not a Republican and you're older. So I went through that. I was a Democrat first, then I got fed up with them because they didn't really do anything. They didn't keep up with what they promised. So I went over to the Republican Party and they did the same thing. They let me down. It's a bunch of hypocrisy. And then I was independent. And I had a friend of mine tell me about Ron Paul. And at first I wasn't all in quite yet, but after a while it kind of made sense to me after a little bit. And this is the moment it happened for me. I just found this online political quiz, isidewith.com. Mm-hmm. It was like 100 questions, something like that. You can answer in detail as much as you want. And it came out like at the end, like 87% Libertarian. Wow. By like 20%. The next closest was 20% away. So I was like, I was just blown away by that. I was like, so I looked into the candidate, and it was Gary Johnson about to run at the time. There was rumors about that. So I looked into him, and I looked into the Libertarian Party platform, and I was just blown away. I was like, this makes sense to me. Where were they before? Why did it take me so long to find them? And that was in late 2011, I believe, early 2012. So I ended up voting for Gary Johnson, and I voted Libertarian wherever I could. And that was my moment right there.
And you have the special privilege, if you will, of belonging to one of the great affiliates in the United States, a party and a state that has sent countless folks into general elections and has had a number of winners. Is this your first time running for office?
This is my second time. And for a time, yeah, my state affiliate, Libertarian Party of Florida, had the most elected Libertarians in the whole country. So that was pretty cool. I'm not sure if it is that way anymore. Maybe Pennsylvania's got us, maybe New York, I don't know. But I'm not trying to have a rivalry here. We're all trying to get more people elected here, obviously.
Absolutely.
I ran in 2018. And one of my moments for running in 2018 was in 2016. I was looking at obviously I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. And down ballot, there was a senator, a Libertarian senator running there. So that was an easy one for me. He made a lot of sense. And then I got further down the ballot, and I was like, it's either Democrat or Republican. I did my research. I looked into it, and I was just like, these people, I can't vote for these people. I'm voting lesser of two evils. So I was like, I got to stop complaining. I got to be the change I want to see. So at that moment, I was literally filling out my ballot, and I was, okay, I'm going to run next time. So that's how I decided to run in 2018.
Excellent. That's a perfect way to start tonight. Ultimately, there's folks in any political organization anywhere in American life that complain about this. They object to that. Be the difference. Step up. For some people, it's running for office. For some folks, they're more comfortable with a behind-the-scenes role. regardless, we need you in both roles.
Right.
Step up and be that difference. And this is turning out to be, despite all the challenges that we perceive out there, the consensus from every candidate we've had on this show in the couple months that we've been doing it has been that there is real opportunity. And it's simply of how you choose to reflect on that. Now, you're running for, as we like to say here, the Big 25. So tell us a little bit about your district, its economy, and let's first talk pre-COVID.
Right.
What were the issues that really brought it home for folks in Florida 25?
Yeah, in District 25, it's a very gerrymandered district, very, very gerrymandered. Like the people that were making the map knew what they were trying to get out of it. But as far as where it's located, it's Eastern County or Eastern Volusia County. So it's coastal Volusia County, which Volusia County is basically Daytona Beach, the greater Daytona Beach area. Mm-hmm. And so it has about 22 miles of coastal Daytona Beach. It does go inland a little bit to my hometown of Ormond Beach, Port Orange, New Smyrna Beach. But it's basically coastal Volusia County, or the coastal Daytona Beach side. So part of that, a big thing around here is driving on the beach. Of course, right. The motto of my hometown, Ormond Beach, is the birthplace of speed. 100 years ago, plus than that, they used to have speed trials literally on the beach. And of course, we all know the racing that was happening on the sand, on natural dirt. In Daytona back decades and decades ago. So there's a real history behind that. And of course, it's freedom. It's individuals' rights to be on the beach. That's a big issue here. And I'm constantly fighting for being allowed to be on the beach.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because part of the Rhode Island State Constitution that's constantly under siege is beach rights and the ability to fish, which goes back literally historically to the 17th century. But ultimately, the coastal states stand firm on that. It's part of our birthright is beach access. So that's great stuff. Economically, is it, of course, we all know about Daytona, the racing business, the tourism business. What are some of the other economic aspects of your district?
Yeah, so you hit on the big ones there. Other big ones are Bike Week. We have a lot of bikers coming in. We have Oktoberfest, and of course, the beachside Daytona is just that's huge over there. We got the Main Street. It's just they block off the streets for the whole weekend, sometimes the whole week. With concerts coming in there, and some businesses literally are open just those times, just that right. October Biketoberfest they call it, and that Bike Week, and that's it. The rest of the time they're closed, and they make all their money right there in those really just two different times of the year. So that's huge. Spring break is good. It's not as busy as it used to be 20 years ago, but it's still a big part of it. Yeah, the beach economy is really everything. Without NASCAR, without bikes, and without the beach, that's the whole economy of the Daytona Beach area.
So and for most of us, for most Americans, life right now is sort of, BC, AC, if you will. Before COVID, after COVID, what were constituents' primary concerns? Things like education, taxes, gentrification. Give us sort of the recipe for District 25.
Yeah, there's probably developments. There's elected officials here locally. There's a lot of corruption going on. There's a lot of money going into the campaigns of some of these people from the development. And the elected officials pretty much just rubber stamp whatever comes through. They change zoning laws and everything. And people that live by there, they thought, oh, this is supposed to be residential there. Let's keep it residential. And then they just the elected officials make an exception and make it commercial. And next thing you know, you have a gas station in your backyard. So that's a very troubling thing going on here. And there's just a bunch of homes coming up. And one of the things, it's slightly north of my district, but it's part of it also. Are septic tanks going into sewer tanks, and how there's depending on where it is and where the developers give money to the campaign contributions to the elected officials, they'll make exceptions for them to have it one way or the other depending on how the developer wants it, and then basically just whatever the people, they just basically try to screw them over, the homeowners. So and they force them to pay for conversions, and just having the hookup available there, they have to pay for it, even though they don't want it. Yeah.
In terms of, and for folks who aren't familiar with Florida's system of governance, if I could call it that after the chaos of the last few weeks, you got the counties are very, very important. What are your primary concerns going to be on the General Assembly? What, in what issues are you going to be looking to make decisions on for Florida in the coming months and after you sweep to victory?
Right. Well, I'm very libertarian. I agree with the libertarian platform pretty much from top to bottom. But if I get elected, I'm going to be one person, just one elected official there out of so many. So you got to nudge the needle in the direction towards liberty, right? So one thing I want to do is when it comes to property taxes, if you live in your home, you pay off your mortgage, you live there for 50 years, but if you fall in hard financial times, if you don't pay your property taxes, guess what? Government comes over, takes your house, and you lose it. So I don't want that to happen. So I'd like the property taxes to be abolished. And I know libertarians, we want to just keep it there, not replace it with anything. But that's not going to pass the state legislature, not going to get signed by the governor, obviously. So the most important thing is the American dream. It's owning your own home and not having to continue paying rent on something you own. So what we could do is just move that tax either voluntarily. You could do the programs either through the lottery. Like before the lottery we have here is supposed to go towards education. We could have institute our lottery. So you're voluntarily paying into a lottery system, and we help fund it that way. Obviously, it's not going to be enough. So maybe a sales tax you would have on some luxury items would be something you have to have. I know that's not what we ideal, but it's I think moves the needle in the right direction towards liberty. So that's the biggest one. You want me to keep going about other issues?
Oh, absolutely. No, we part of the opportunity here is for folks from around the country to do exactly what you're doing, which is to see what's important to local officials and analyze them through a libertarian perspective, and so, but also deal with the rational aspects of having to quote unquote govern in a world of peace and freedom, as that we all envision in the coming years. There'll be less need to govern. But ultimately, we need to begin to unwrap this mess, this sausage that they've, as we say up here in Rhode Island, that we saw them make the sausage. It wasn't very appealing. Now it's time to unwrap it a little bit and air it all out. So you're exactly on the right path. What we try to get a sense, for example, if voters are voting, example, education funding, and what kind of, for example, in your area, how good is the quality of public education? How is it working out for the individual as opposed to, say, charter schools, independent for-profit schools, and of course, always the opportunity to teach your children at home. Is there a lot of creative tension there, or how are the schools?
Yeah, when I was collecting positions for my last campaign and my current campaign, I would ask people, what's one thing you'd like to improve in Florida? And far and away, this campaign was schools. So I'd tell them, okay, well, what about the schools would you like to improve? And it'd either be teacher pay, or it would be more school choices or different hours. And that's been really controversial here lately too, as they keep moving around the hours, the start times and end times of the schools here in Volusia County. One thing I was that the teachers would there was we obviously had to cancel in-person school here lately because of the COVID crisis, right? So I was actually looking at, I belong to this group on Facebook. It's Volusia County Schools. So I go in there and kind of learn more about what are the issues. And I saw a survey just came out today, that polled about 20,000 parents and teachers. And it was far and away, they want to go back to the in-person school by about 50%. About 20% or so wanted a hybrid, and about 20% wanted just online only. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, even 20% wanted to be just online. That tells me that option is something, it's a real option now. And that, saves taxpayer dollars, it saves time, it saves, the cost of travel. And if a parent is available to do it at home, why not do it at home? So with that idea, that mindset at home, what we could do to promote that. Oh, and another thing, it would decrease the class size by 20%, which is another good thing. That would cost less teachers you would have to keep the class size down. So it saves taxpayer dollars everywhere around. And what I would like to do is take that money that goes to, or at least a part of it, that goes to each student. And in Florida, it's actually relatively cheap, I think, than statewide. It's only about $8,000 per student. So get part of that and bring it to the teachers, bring it to the parents. If they choose to teach their kids at home, there'll be some money there available to them. Either whether or not that offsets some of their income that they would be losing if they went to work. But it's much more valuable spending time with your kids if you could do it that way and teach them what you want to teach. It'll be far more valuable. I have a friend of mine. They have 3 kids. 2 of them are school age, so they were doing the teaching at home thing, and they were telling me they're done with their schooling in half the time. Like it takes them 3 hours, and they're done through all of it. So I think it's a lot more time saving that way too.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at your part of the state, I guess Fallujah and Flagler are the 2 central metropolitan areas. Something that I hadn't been aware of until I was doing some reading earlier this week is that the world famous Embry-Riddle Aeronautical School is right in your heart, and that's a famous institution for flying and aeronautics. They appear to be the only ones intent on opening up, for somewhat obvious reasons, classroom facilities. But by and large, folks are going into this what was going to be thought of as a one-time, one-off approach in terms of remote learning is clear that they're not all systems ahead yet for September. And it brings up, I'll just throw this out to you in the audience, a number of states, including Arizona, who've been on the forefront of it, have something called educational savings accounts, educational savings scholarships, where a portion of your money, a significant portion of the money that would have been allocated to you under the education formula is put like a health savings account on a debit card for you. And you can spend it in any which way you see fit if you remove your children from the public school system. And it's had astonishing results among some of the poorest communities in the nation. And of course, I'm talking about our Native Americans. So it's the opportunity for libertarians to look to the successes that have occurred in terms of remote learning and point to, as you so aptly point out, point to a real opportunity for changing the way that we teach our children, are very, very real. And it's great also that you're also going out and you're listening to community. You're asking them what concerns them. And that's possibly one of the most important things you can do as a candidate. Now, in Florida, you got some guy named DeSantis or something. Isn't that his name? He's the gubernator. What's going on with COVID and what's your reflection on civil rights in Florida in the age of COVID?
Yeah, it's interesting. Ron DeSantis is our governor. And he was actually my former congressman. We're in the same district. So he was my congressman for, I think, 3 terms. And then he ran for governor and he won barely. Right. Florida's a very kind of red versus purple, or a red versus blue state, but red is kind of inching out a little bit. So he won by I think 1% or less than that actually against a socialist Democrat. So anyway, he was kind of hesitant to kind of go with some of the other states around and start closing everything down. But once he did, it was like a daily thing. He was closing this down, closing that, and the same thing with our local, my city and my county. They would close something down every single day, and that lasted for about 2 weeks. And they closed down the beaches, which was a huge deal. Here's the hypocrisy of government thinking here. They leave the Walmarts completely open. This is an enclosed area, these little aisles here with 10 people. They didn't have these walk one way or anything at this time, like 2 months ago. So they have these bunched in aisles and no limits on how many people could go in there. And it's an enclosed area. And we have this beach, very, very wide, literally 48 miles of Volusia County of beach. And that's completely closed off. They would close down the parking to the beach access. You couldn't drive your car on the beach, which didn't make sense. Isn't that the kind of the top of social distancing right there? You can literally raise your window and you'll be away from everybody that way. So that made absolutely no sense. And you could tell that it wasn't about safety at all.
It's all about control, isn't it? And here you have it, and this is an issue near and dear to libertarians everywhere this week. What stages are being taken to reopen business in your part of Florida?
Right. So we are, I think, in phase 2 right now. It wasn't that bad here, relatively speaking. And so we are opening things up on Monday, actually. the county will be opening up the libraries. The libraries were completely closed, and that's where I collected most of my petitions. And those in local festivals, whatever the city or LGBTQ communities were putting up, I would be there along with my Volusia County LP affiliate, which are great. They're great activists. I love being a part of that group. Been a part of that group for 3.5 years now. I'm very happy, and they've been a huge help to my campaign, both in 2018 and now. And we miss being out there. I mean, I really miss talking to people. Like you said, we could learn from them. They could tell us, what the issues are. And I actually learned that helping with another campaign. She was running for a special election, and that's what she did. I actually learned it from her. And then I instituted that into my campaign as well. So it's always great when you have some things to bounce off of locally. So an active local Libertarian Party, it makes it that much more stronger.
Right. Absolutely. How are you campaigning right now during COVID? Are you able to do much digital? Have you been able to do any AMAs or town hall meetings? What's your focus going forward now that at least things are starting to reopen a little bit?
Yeah, so we have 2 local political radio stations that I think I listen to pretty heavily. I'm a regular caller on both of them. I called one of them up today. I think the other one was on a repeat today. And then they have a playback for the last hour that they have. And it was actually this segment called Evolutionaries. So it's kind of a steal off of the McLaughlin group, if you remember that, where it's
right.
4 different newsmakers on different sides of the aisle. So they have me on there because I'm kind of a different libertarian voice. So they were replaying that. It's a 2-hour segment. And so I went on there and give my libertarian opinion about the goings on at the national level, state level, and local level. So
That's
doing that and getting my name out there, calling radio stations. I'm doing letters to the editor, although some of the newspapers stopped, doing their newspapers because of the COVID thing, because they kind of lost advertisers because of the local businesses being down. So they lose the advertising there. But yeah, I'm on Facebook. There's a website or a Facebook group called Volusia Issues and Volusia Concerns. So I'm in there giving my opinion and on things there. So I'm doing as much as I can without actually going out and shaking hands and kissing babies, which would not be a good idea to do right now.
absolutely. You nailed an important avenue for folks that I don't think libertarians take nearly enough advantage of. And of course, that's talk radio. Now, your community may not have a significant talk radio operation, but many do. And it's a way for grassroots efforts like Libertarian Party local affiliates to reach literally thousands of people in a single shot. And as important, it's free. And I say this is critical because libertarians in Rhode Island, we helped defeat 2 baseball stadium referendums, which would have been privately funded. I'm sorry, publicly funded private organizations. All right, by simply in our toolbox, including extensive attacks on talk radio. And if you're interested on talk radio, and if you can get your messaging down, and everyone can do it, it just simply requires practice. Really, you have to go at it and go at it and go at it. You can reach thousands of people almost on a daily basis on the issues of the day, because so many of these local talk radio stations are focusing exclusively on local issues. And that's great because, ultimately, regardless of what's happening outside with your ability to get out and press the flesh and go to the meetings, if you've got an established presence in the media, people will flock. People will come to you. They want your opinion. They're thirsty for alternatives, aren't they? How's your reception been in terms? Because I have a sense if you're on a typical sort of Republican conservative local Rush Limbaugh kind of show, they're probably not going to agree with you 100% of the time, but they're certainly going to listen, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's the thing. These 2 shows locally here, political radio shows, are very unique. One of them is kind of right-leaning, but very fair. Another one is kind of left-leaning, but also very fair. And one of them is hosted by a former county chair, Volusia County Council chairman. So he knows a lot of stuff. He's the guy to know anything about Volusia County. So he's a very, very local, Volusia County is all I care about type of guy. and the other one is really everything. But he talks about national, state, and local. So you kind of pick and choose which one you want to go to. And yeah, some of them are good receptions, and some of them are bad receptions. But I think I'm well liked by both. And they both know me by name, know me by look, and the listeners will sometimes say something about me. But it's mostly good stuff. But yeah, I'm getting my name out there, obviously, name recognition. And I only started being active, like I said, about 3.5 years ago. Before that, I was just one of those people that would complain about everything. I would go vote, but that's about it. And then that's when I decided to make a change. And I've been hitting that hard and driving it. And yeah, I'm hoping to push the message. And I think I'm doing that.
Well, absolutely. Now, and this is the natural progression of involvement in the media, by being a regular, consistent voice on important local issues, the next step is for you to be kind of brought into the fold, if you will, in local media as a guest. And once you hit the guest circuit, once you become one of those folks, the opportunities are endless. Because again, how eager are people in your experience now for new ideas, and how eager are they to look for something just different that appeals to their sense of fairness and their sense of individuality?
Absolutely. And I pointed up here a second ago, was that's a sticker that says vote no on Volusia County sales tax increase. That we had a special election about a year ago, just over a year ago, about increasing the sales tax here by 0.5%. And it was a huge deal here locally. And me, as a Libertarian Party person, I got a bunch of other groups together. I got people from Sierra Club. I got people from the local Republican Party to come out. Just a bunch of different groups, local civic groups, these activists that weren't Libertarians. They all came together to sign wave in a group an event that I created. And I went to some of theirs too, and we had them all over Volusia County. It was defeated, which is what our whole point was. Right. And it sent a message to the local, the rich developer types here that try to just railroad everything, try to railroad their own projects over the objections of the people. And it's all just corruption. And we sent them a message, a hard message. And it got a lot of other groups together. And I'm talking to, like I said, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. It doesn't matter. It's transpartisan. And people are getting the message that government is corrupt. So the reason why we all care, these activists care, is because government has so much power. So if you disagree with them, fine. They shouldn't have so much power, then you don't have to worry about it. Whatever they do, you can disagree with it or not, it doesn't affect you as much. So they're all kind of getting the message that government is too big.
And it's important for a Libertarian Party representative to be at the forefront. Let's be the aggressor. Let's take the offensive. Let's not sit back and wait for others to lead. And that's a great message to send out to libertarians everywhere. Now, this is the part of the show where we call shameless self-promotion. So tell us where folks can find you on the web, where folks can find you on the Facebook or social media, and also equally important where, and we understand these are still very difficult times, but if folks have an extra couple of bucks, maybe, or maybe give up on that one coffee at $5, maybe they can send you a little bit of coin to help you in your singular battle against what is clearly a challenged Florida legislature.
Yeah, so they can go to my Facebook page. I'm very active on that. I post at least once a day on there. If you just go to facebook.com or just do a search for what you see there at the bottom, Joe Hannoush for Florida State Representative. I think it might be House or something there to kind of fit within their parameters. But yeah, just do a search for that. You could find my website. I'm not as updated on that all the time, but it's also, again, it's my name, joehannoush.com. There'll be donate buttons there if you'd like to share my post there. I'd appreciate it. And I do have a Twitter, but I don't really use that for campaigning. I use it to kind of help libertarian ideas. I share, of course, Libertarian Congressman Justin Amash's post, Jo Jorgensen, of course, our presidential candidate. I share her post and do hashtags that would help her get more noticed. And by the way, the live stream from last night on LP Live or LPTV with Jo Jorgensen and Spike Cohen was great, was phenomenal. So just my hats off to you guys there. And a direct link to my PayPal would be paypal.me/Joe Hannoush. So
Excellent.
JoeHannoush right there.
Well, Joe, thanks for joining us. We're going to bring you on one last time at the end of the night to give that last plug, because again, it's all about shameless self-promotion here. But we need candidates like you who have got organized approaches, your diligent campaigning, an aggressive social media presence, and just as importantly, an aggressive media presence at large. You know, it's sometimes we get wrapped up in our libertarian world, our own little bubble here, and we forget that there's a lot of folks out there who don't know about any of our great Austrian economists. They don't understand our philosophers. They're simply, particularly at times like this, looking at day-to-day life and how to work through it. So, you know, you reach out to folks on the radio is key. You're reaching thousands. So we'll see you in a few minutes. And again, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Matt.
Folks, if you're just joining us, you are listening to An Hour with the Candidates, where we spend an hour talking to down ballot candidates from around the country. We'd love to invite more participation. We're talking about going to a second night a week. My goal, my stated goal in life, is to get every single libertarian down ballot candidate on the air between now and November. So bring it on. You can email us, or you can reach out to us on the Facebook, the LPTV Facebook page, or of course, you can email us at Hour with the Candidates. That's Hour with the Candidates at Gmail. And we'll continue to put those posts up as we build this show up. A special thanks, of course, to the Libertarian Party, Dan Fishman and Nick Sarwak, who brought this to fruition. Dan is serving yeoman's tasks in addition to running multiple conventions and running the nation's third largest political party. He is also our producer tonight, so he is the man behind the scenes. Joining us next, let's get right to it again. Pat Dixon. He is a special election candidate for Texas Senate District 14. Pat, welcome to LPTV, An Hour with the Candidates.
Well, Pat, I really want to thank you for this opportunity. I really want to thank you and Dan for doing this, because, of course, in this environment, for candidates like us to get any exposure, people aren't answering the door if you knock, right?
Right.
With COVID, most of what I've done in my previous campaigns is block walking, and it's very effective. But if I go and knock on my neighbor's door, they're probably not going to answer.
Right.
Even though they like me. So what you and what you're doing right here, and your ambition to cover every down ballot candidate, is phenomenal. It's amazing. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Well, and again, let me say this, and I try to remember to say this every week. I'll say this to Joe. I'll say this to you. I'll say this to the candidates we haven't met, and I'll say this to the candidates we've had on the show. Running for office in the United States in the year 2020 is an act of great. Not only is it worthy of you and worthy of the community, but it is an act of sacrifice that I think only folks who have run for office can truly understand. You're taking time away from you, your family. You're going out and meeting people in challenging times. You're taking, in a sense, unfairly, the brunt of people's frustrations with current government and their disappointments and their cynicism for future government. It is act of patriotism that is astonishing on so many levels. You're opening up yourself to inquiries about your personal financial situations, your job situations, and yet, and when you get elected, and I'm convinced you guys will, when you get elected, the countless hours at nights that you're serving your community, it is an act of voluntarism and volunteering that is so precious and so important to us in these challenging times, because you are preaching a message of spiritual individuality and a message of liberty in truly one of the darkest moments in our nation's history. So I went on a little bit long there, but again, my hat's off to all of you for what you do. Now you're running for a special election. What's going on there? Did we have someone bail, or did you chase him out of office? We actually had a candidate in Rhode Island who Billy Hunt, outstanding candidate. He literally chased a guy out of office. So it was so embarrassing that the gentleman was never sworn in and then had to go to a special election. But what's going on in Texas District 14?
Well, in our case, the current senator is Kirk Watson, a Democrat, and he got a better offer. He thought he could make more money doing some other stuff, like I think he's going to work for a lobbying firm or something like that.
Oh my.
So he decided, hey guys, I'm going to jump out of here before the general election. And so the governor had to call a special election, but of course COVID happened. So it had to be scheduled. So the date for that special election is July 14th.
Wow.
And there are 6 candidates on the ballot. There are 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, an independent, and me, the Libertarian.
Right. Has much play, and I want to focus more on you, but just one last question about that. Has much play been made about the cost to the people of Texas to run a campaign for an office that he had, not through illness or tragedy or COVID or some thoroughly understandable means, but here's a gentleman who is just self-serving, who sees an opportunity and he took it, and now leaving, couldn't even wait a few more months and leaving you guys in the lurch. Any reflection on the cost of that?
Well, when you first said cost, particularly to libertarians, when we hear the term cost of election, it really impacts us in Texas, because the last legislative session, the legislature decided to impose a punitive tax on libertarian candidates. So there's this misunderstanding in the state of Texas. Hey, libertarians get to run on the ballot without having to spend any money, and Republicans and Democrats, they have to spend. What they spend is a filing fee that is used to cover the cost of their own nomination. So the Republicans and Democrats have a primary. They have all the voters come out and vote on who should be the nominee for state senate or whatever office. The Libertarian Party pays 100% of the cost of our nomination process. But because we don't pay the state any money, we cover that cost ourselves. Democrats and Republicans said, well, that's unfair. So we're going to make libertarians pay money to the state and still cover 100% of their own nomination process.
Right.
And when I filed for this office, I did have to pay a filing fee. So when we think about the cost of elections in Texas, yes, there's cost when you have special elections, when you have runoff elections. I am a strong supporter of approval voting, which I think would handle a lot of that. But there's these other costs that only impact libertarian candidates. And that's just bogus. There's, I believe, a lawsuit that I hope at some point gets heard, and I hope we win.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just swimming in the dough here as a grassroots effort nationally. And with all of the advantages the with the Democratic and Republican parties have at using their current elected office for fundraising. And then just, again, stepping gleefully into highly compensated positions using the connections they made on the taxpayer dime. Yeah, that's certainly fair. Well, let's talk about issues in your district. Talk about, if you will, the geography of where you are in the great state of Texas, and what's the economy there? What's the structure? How do people make a living pre-COVID?
Okay, well, I would have loved to show you my district last weekend if we had a convention. We were so looking forward to having the national convention here in Austin. We are obviously a very popular area. So you have the map up there. It shows District 14 has Bastrop County, which is southeast of downtown Austin. And then part of Travis County is in District 14. Mm-hmm. So that's the lay of the land there. Bastrop tends to be a bit more rural, maybe more agriculture. Obviously, Austin is more high tech. And in terms of how people make a living here, my field of what I do for a living is in the industrial space, industrial automation. So I'm used to going to chemical facilities and oil refineries and paper mills and things like that. You don't find any of that really here. But you do find a lot of technology companies, even in my industry, that are based here. So it's a lot of tech. It's a lot of startup software. The University of Texas is here, which is huge, and it spins off a lot of other businesses based on research that occurs and so forth. So that's a lot of what you have here.
Do you have a lot of development pressures? I would imagine with Austin becoming as genteel as it has in some perspectives, there's always that sort of like Portlandia, that kind of keep Austin weird moment. But I've got to believe from my reading that gentrification is a huge issue for some of the very people who made Austin weird.
Yeah.
What's going on with that in terms of elected officials, and how frustrated are people by that?
Well, there's a lot of frustration. So I served 2 terms as a city council member in Lago Vista, Texas, which is outside the city. So I'm kind of on the far western edge of that district you just showed. So it gets into the hill country and it's not as urban. But certainly East Austin is where gentrification is a hot topic. But if you look at the region generally, as I mentioned, Central Texas is extremely attractive. A lot of people in businesses are relocating here. We've heard about Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and all these people saying, maybe I'll move to Austin. So Austin is extremely popular. The concern I have, and I've been expressing this for a while, is it sustainable when you have government trying to stimulate growth through tax incentives and corporate welfare schemes?
Yes.
So the state of Texas has an enterprise fund, and they have several other funds where the governor of Texas can say, I've got some taxpayer money here. I can be the champion of the world by getting some Fortune 500 company to come in and say, I am providing jobs for everybody. Is that sustainable even if you have that job growth? You're putting more cars on the road. Who's paying for that? You're putting more kids in schools. Who's paying for that? You're pulling more water out of the reservoirs and groundwater. Who's paying for that? More demand on the energy grid, more demand on public services and emergency services. So if the result is we attracted large corporations that grew our region, but it put more tax burden on people like me, is that sustainable? And that's the question I have to ask. There's studies that I've seen, a lot of studies that try to look at these policies and whether they provide a net jobs, and it's mixed. You see different results. I don't see studies that look at the actual impact on the region, on all the demands you put on infrastructure and who's paying for that. That's what I think we need, especially in Central Texas, but throughout the state of Texas. I want to see those studies before we continue these corporate welfare schemes.
Well, it's an area that's very near and dear to my heart. It's something I've spent a lot of time on, and it is a winning issue for libertarians for a couple of reasons. First of all, the reason why you don't see those studies is because they're done, but quite frankly, they're done usually with proof of concept as a given, such that if, for example, you're going to subsidize a sports stadium or a retail establishment, incredibly enough, every time a consulting firm is hired, usually by the developers, it provides proof of concept. Of course it will. There's always this concept that additional expenditures are going to be generated that will increase, if you will, the velocity of money throughout the local economy. And yet there's substantial proof in the dreaded private sector, particularly in taxpayer interest groups, that proves that that's absolute balderdash. There's also a question of morality, because ultimately you're asking folks, and this is how we've won with this issue out here, you're asking folks in similar businesses to use their taxpayer dollars to effectively subsidize their competition.
Yes.
But the real morality is it is entirely inappropriate for private taxpayer funds to be used to subsidize private institutions. It's theft. And,
as a matter of fact, one of the things that happened when I was on city council that I got ridiculed for, I live in a small town where there wasn't a grocery store.
Mhm.
Now you can go 15 miles and go to big grocery stores, but people said, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a grocery store in our town?
Of course it would.
And I said, well, when the market's there, it'll come. Well, what happened is there was a surprise vote on city council. There it was. I walked into city council and we were supposed to vote on a tax subsidy to a corporation that wanted to build a grocery store. We went into executive session. I said, Mayor, I'm going to vote no. And I got harassed. The newspaper made fun of me, but I had people in Lago Vista saying, you did the right thing.
Mhm.
So when I talk about, one of the things I'm trying to do in my campaign is, it's not about what I say or what anyone says. It's about my record. Look at what I did when I was on city council. That's my resume. So I'm trying to get hired for a job. I'm showing my resume and showing you I have the qualifications.
Mhm. I will tell you one more thing about that issue, corporate cronyism, corporate welfare. And one of my two personal hashtags is #end corporate welfare. Ending it is something that we believe in. It's in our libertarian DNA, if you will. But it also accomplishes a very important task. The Libertarian Party of Rhode Island is the only political party that has worked actively. We've done picket lines. We've done countless hours of testimony. We've spent hours on radio and TV, on talk radio and political TV, fighting this. It has given us great visibility, which is important. But more importantly, it inoculates us from any accusations of being corporatists. There is no one in the state of Rhode Island who will say, oh, those Koch brother loving libertarians who only support corporations, you'd be laughed out of town.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact,
go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
I am not a Trump fan by any means, but I have to say that when I listen to Steve Bannon, the point he makes about how the middle class has been cut out, and a lot of that, I think, resonates with a lot of people, and especially in the context of corporate welfare, when you see who's getting the real benefit out of the economy. I think there's a lot that can resonate there. So we're not put in this conservative class of, hey, we're big business. What we're for is free market.
Right. The free market it must be kept sacred. The true free market, not what some folks interpret as their free market. You know, I listen to here, and I'm wondering if this is happening in Texas too. There is an issue now with employment here in Rhode Island where a lot of folks don't want to return to work because they're getting the regular unemployment. Plus they're getting that, as we say, the $600 kiss in the mail, you know, and folks in the neocon, the conservative business community are losing their minds over this because we need you to come back to work. We've got one local group here that actually advertises with a little jingle that says, Rhode Island needs you. Well, my question, and I understand where they're coming from. I don't necessarily agree with 100% of it, but I understand. But my question is, where is that same ferocity when it comes to the billions, literally the trillions that we've given to large corporations who were making record profits 2 weeks before COVID and were led to believe 3 weeks into it that they have been brought to their collective knees? When are they going to return that money? When are they? The hypocrisy and the right of center when it comes to corporate welfare is stunning, because I bet you this is a term you heard while you were being made sport of. That's the way things are done. Mm-hmm. Pat, under your leadership, is that the way things are going to be done?
No, that's not the way things are going to be done. The way things are going to be done, if I'm in the Texas Senate, what I am going to do is deliberate with other. Look, I'm not going to walk in there and, hey, I'm here and everybody do things my way. That didn't happen on city council either. I didn't walk in there saying everyone has to listen to me now. You got to work with other people and find common ground. So I am not going to profess that if I'm elected to the Senate, I will be able to create libertarian utopia. What I'm going to do is look for those common ground issues. I think this is one of them, and I think it will be increasingly obvious as we go forward and look at sustainability issues and have to ask who's paying for all this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm right there with you. How has campaigning now? You're really under the gun because you've got this special election, and on top of that, you've got a national holiday in between. Then you've really got about a 5-week period where you're going to be able to campaign in some manner. How has it been going, and what are your plans coming up for the future?
Well, the biggest challenge is just getting my name mentioned. When the filing date came done, there were 6 candidates that filed, and I would wake up and I'd listen to the radio and it said, well, the candidates are Eddie Rodriguez, Sarah Eckhart, and Donna Zimmerman. Half of them. They mentioned 3 out of the 6. Now, having been elected twice in this district to an office, I would hope at least they'd say, well, there's also a Libertarian who's won some elections. So that's the biggest challenge, is making sure at least when people mention this election, my name is included. So I've been working on that. I ran one Facebook ad so far to try to get some eyes on my site, and we're going to continue doing that. I'm going to look for any kind of creative way to get people to look at me. And one other thing I'm doing that's different. Usually a candidate, you're told this by the Leadership Institute. What you do is you say, here are my issues. I'm the election candidate, or I'm the education candidate. I'm the anti-war candidate. I'm whatever this. I'm not doing that. I also don't have a detailed platform saying, here's every issue and what I'm going to do. I'm saying my platform is one word: logic. That's it. I want to be the logical choice. Here's my resume. Here's my abilities. If you think I'm qualified, I want to be your choice. That's it.
And how is it resonating with the voters? And I know none of us really have the option very often of doing opinion polling.
Right.
What's your sense? How open are people for a change in your district right now?
I think there is. Now, to be honest, at least since '92, a Democrat has won this district every time. The closest any Republicans come is, I think, 36%. But this is a 6-way race. So you got 2 Democrats fighting each other, 2 Republicans fighting each other. So I think there's an appetite. As you said, if I had the money, you start with polling. Do people know who I am? If they do, what do they think of me? What do they think of other people? You do all that stuff. I don't expect to have the kind of money Eddie Rodriguez has. He's expecting to have $1 million. Wow. You don't think I'm going to raise $1 million? But what I get, I am going to use most effectively. This is Austin is known as weird and liberal and progressive and so forth. And I love having Austin be weird, but I wish it was not as weird politically as it is.
Yeah, no, that's $1 million for a state Senate race. Holy cow. Yeah, the influence of money in politics, it's not too profound. Oof, that's plus of course the cost of even registering to be part of the election individually. And,
look at Bloomberg. I mean, Bloomberg blew a bunch of money, and where is he now? So money isn't everything, but it matters.
No, it certainly opens doors, and it's very, very important these days, unfortunately, to maintain at least certain veneers of quote unquote, and it's very often conflated. Somehow appearance is conflated with professionalism, which of course, as we know, is ridiculous because we've seen some of the folks that are making decisions during this period. By the way, and of course, I've got to ask you, what is the sense of folks in Texas 14 with the state's reaction to COVID? I mean, you've got, by all accounts, you did have rapid shutdowns. Do you still have that, or at least I say, do you have that same sort of hypocrisy where big bar stores are allowed to open in some form and local businesses are literally being put to death as we speak?
Well, I think in Texas, we're probably more open than a lot of other states. I know there's been some rallies, but we haven't had people like in Michigan show up at the State House and have those kinds of protests. Obviously, there's a difference between how the state handles things and how things are handled locally. In Austin, the South by Southwest Festival, which is this huge thing that happens every March, it was shut down. Okay.
Right.
And I think instinctively, the city government in Austin is being a bit more conservative on this issue than Governor Abbott at the state level. Of course, we wanted to have the state convention or the national convention here, and that didn't happen. So I don't think there's as much tension as I've seen elsewhere in the United States. But one of my opponents, Don Zimmerman, who's actually a friend of mine, I know Don's very well. He's running on the platform Open Texas to use this opportunity with COVID to say, let's just open everything. So he's going to run with that. We'll see how he does.
Okay. Well, this is, as we mentioned earlier, what we call a shameless self-promotion. Let's go over the websites. And again, we understand that these are difficult times economically. Clearly, a lot of families have become devastated. They're underemployed or they're unemployed as a result of COVID. We understand too that in the libertarian world, so many of us are running for office, and our support structure is stretched so thin by so many generous libertarians and their friends and families. But should folks have an opportunity to donate to you or are interested more in inquiring about your race, where can folks find you on the web?
The website is logic14.org. LOGIC, the number 14.org. And I want to explain how I came up with that website. As I said before, I'm running a campaign that's different. I've won 2 elections. This is my 5th time running for office, and I'm trying something different this time. Like I said, I'm not going to make promises like other people do to special interest groups. Hey, do this for us, and we'll give our 100,000 members their support and so forth. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a detailed and flexible platform. I'm just saying, look, I've been in office. If you like what you saw, and if you want someone who's going into the state legislature, especially when we have issues like redistricting, which can't go anywhere with Democrats and Republicans. You're going to need somebody outside those 2 parties if you want to do anything about redistricting that makes sense. So that's what I'm offering. My website, logic14.org. If you go there, you won't see a detailed platform, but what you will see are questions. When people ask me questions, when I have organizations ask me, where do you stand on these issues? I will answer them. Those answers are there right now. So that's how people can evaluate me, and I'm hoping that you see the opportunity. With 6 people on the ballot, the Libertarian could make an impact here.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And also, again, thank you for taking part of your life, literally carving out part of your life and bringing your family and putting yourself on the line for liberty. This is the first real battle of liberty, and the election poll and the polling houses and the high school gyms and wherever people go to vote. The personal sacrifice is great. And sometimes the rewards are few, and then you get elected. And as you've known as an elected official, the amount of time that you're asked to sacrifice So we thank you for your consistent application of libertarian principles in this sort of real world environment that can be so challenging. I'm going to ask Joe to come back on one more time, and if he can engage, and again, and in a shameless self-promotion, if we could talk just a little bit about where we can find Joe again on the web. Joe, go right ahead.
All right. Yeah. So you see there, facebook.com/Joe Hannoush. You can find me my website also. I'm very active on Facebook, though. That's definitely something you want to follow. JoeHannoush.com. I just want to stress one more thing, though. Campaigns have a start date and end date. What doesn't end is your activism, the issues in your state or your county or district or whatever. Be active. In just 3.5 years of me going from just nothing as far as the sidelines, as far as political things go, to running 2 campaigns, being a regular on a opinion piece on a local political radio show. I'm also on my cities of 40,000 people in Ormond Beach, my budget advisory board there. I got appointed by my city commission there. Just show up, introduce yourself, get involved, go to your library if they have meetings there, other civic organizations have meetings there. Go there, give your opinions, get involved in your local affiliate. If you don't have one, start one. Just get involved. Letters to edit. Right now, obviously, it's hard with everything going on to go in person anywhere, but write letters to the editor. Join Facebook groups online and give your opinions there. And it's all about getting the message out there. And especially as a candidate, it's an opportunity. You get to be involved in debates, and this media comes after you. They write about you. So yeah, get out there and just don't stop.
Outstanding. And I'll reflect again this week briefly. I continue to be blown away by the quality of our quote unquote down ballot candidates. It's one of the reasons why Dan Fishman and I are convinced we're going to write some names in an envelope at the end of this year, the night before election. And I'm convinced that 10 years from now, whoever's doing this will be talking about one of your candidacies for either the presidency of the United States, very high office, both on the national and state and local level. Libertarians, be good cheer. Despite the challenges that we face, the controversies, the occasional squabbles, there is a great future waiting for us as a movement, as a philosophy, as a political party, and as individualists here in this country. And a lot of that rests on the people that you're meeting through this show. An hour with the candidates, Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, at the Facebook page for LPTV. We'd love all of you to join us. Our goal, again, is to get every single candidate running for down ballot office on the air between now and November. We're contemplating now that the smoke is starting to clear from the convention, a second show per week. Please like us and share our Facebook page. Most importantly, share the appearances of all of these candidates who are highly professional, articulate purveyors of liberty, if you will, to the world at large. And then try, after watching this, have one of those folks outside our libertarian world try to diminish our approach and to diminish our future. I dare you. So again, a big thanks to the Libertarian Party, Nick Sarwark, chairman. A big thanks to Dan Fishman for his continued support, both behind the scenes and as executive producer. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, guys.